Yo, what's going on? Volcano Beast, the Sampler King, live from the lab, Studio A, Pots and Pan Audio. Today's special. We're doing my favorite fives, and y'all knew this one was coming. MPCs, my favorite 5 MPCs. It's been about 12 of them so far, and I'm giving you my favorite 5. And luckily, I'm fortunate that I own all 5 of my favorites. So let me show you one of my babies here. We're gonna get into this. Yeah, this is one of them. Click that like, click that subscribe. Let's go. Yo, what's going on? First on my list is the MPC 60 Mark II, released in 1991. This joint basically taught me how to sample. The limitations of it kind of made it so that I learned a little bit better. The fact that there's no waveform readout, the fact that you have to be conservative with your chopping because you don't have that much time, and there's a cutoff on each pad, so you can't just loop a 5-second sample. Nope, you had to know how to chop, and you don't have monotemporality, meaning you can't cut off each pad with each other or have mute groups. Didn't work like that back then, so you had to know how to chop that thing in little bitty bits. I first used this thing. I love the sound of it. I still love the sound of it today. I actually got mine. It's in the shop right now being refurbished, putting all the new bells and whistles on it. But this is one of my favorite 5 just because of the sheer amount of time and just the fact that it started the whole journey for me. I got myself one, refurbishing it, and I'm gonna show you guys when I get it done. But yeah, this is one of my favorite 5. On to the next. Next on my list is the MPC 5000. This joint is the precursor to the MPC X. You don't get that joint without this one. I love this one because of the Q-Link sliders and the 8 knobs. This joint has extended sample time compared to the old ones. $1.92 in RAM. So, you know, that calculates out to about like 30 minutes in sample time. So definitely all you need to get things done. Also included a little synth. So with this synth section, this is basically a Ion/Micron from Alesis inside of here. And I have the Micron. Yes, the patches are almost identical to the Micron. So that's why this joint is so dope, because of the fact that it has a built-in synth. It's the first one that has it. Now you know the MPC X and the MPC Live, and the one has like 4 or 5 synths built in. This joint was the first one to have that built in. I love this one. I love my big MPCs because of the 2 MIDI ins and the 4 MIDI outs, which makes it a godsend for somebody like me with 5 or 6 synths all around the room. I can still control them all from here. 8 outs built in standard, not like the 2000 where you gotta add them. Nah, they built in standard. The effects in here is dope. So yeah, like I say, this one is one of my favorite 5. I honestly didn't like it that much before because I kind of fed into the hype. When this first came out, it sucked. So over the years, they came out with a new OS, made this updated, and honestly, if it would have came out with this OS that's on it now, it probably would have had a different lifespan. The lifespan was going like immediately done for this one, probably 6 months. And people was like wanting to sell them. I remember when this joint was out. So I'm glad that I doubled back and gave this one a try. This is honestly a recent one, but I like it so much that it definitely made my list. That's saying a lot. Like honestly, I got years and years on other MPCs, and I honestly think this one is better than them. So the MPC 5000, one of my favorite 5. Next on my list, the Kang, as I call it. MPC 4000. Now this the beast. This is the original beast. This joint has like all big MPCs, 2 MIDI ins, 4 MIDI outs. I think I first got this joint back in like 08. I ended up selling it, but I was able to get another one, which I'm happy about. This joint is so dope because of the built-in hard drive in here, man, and the fact that you can, even though it's from 2002, you still can do some customizing on here, which is pretty dope. And knock on wood, my hard drive from almost 20 years ago is still working. So that's phenomenal. This joint is the only real sampler inside of an MPC. Some like the 5000 and the X, they have like multi samples, but it's not a full-fledged 100% sampler. This is the only one that is, which is a good thing and sometimes a bad thing because you got to do extra stuff just to do like drum programming, but it's worth it. This is the first joint that had more than 4 pad banks. This one had 6, so that was dope. You was able to extend your sample libraries. What else about this joint? This joint is just nice, man. I like the fact the Q-Link, this is one of the first ones I really got to harness the power of the Q-Links on because it has a little bit extended. A couple more than normal. I like the big screen on it. This joint is phenomenal, man. Mine is in probably about an 8 out of 10 condition. So it's a little quirky stuff on here, but I leave it. It's like a scar. I leave them. This joint is nice. I love it. I've been using it extensively since I got it, and I can't say because of the sound quality, that's why I call it the King. It's the only MPC you can go up 2496 standalone. On the X and the Live you can do 2496 when it's like in hybrid mode, but this is the only one you can unplug and go 2496. I actually got a word clock on that joint too. See that? Got word clock on that joint. So if you got a nice clock, you can actually attach it to this joint. Do word clock. You see USB, SCSI, and like I say, this is from 2002. Foot switch, SMPTE in and out. Like I say, man, this thing it can do everything. I love it. My collection wouldn't be right if I didn't have it. It's one of my favorites since the first time I used it. Like I say, it's a little different. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not as intuitive as like an MPC 2000 XL or like a 2500. It's not that easy to use like those, but you got everything laid out on this big screen. It's crazy. And this one also, the last feature that's dope, the last 2 things, got the phono preamp built into it, so you can hook the turntable right up to it. This is the first one. The only MPCs that you can hook the turntable directly up to them is, this is the first one, the 5000, the X, the Live, and I think the One. I'm not sure, I don't think the One. But these are the only ones that have the actual phono hookup that you can hook the regular turntable up to it without the need of a mixer. This is the first one you can do that on. So, like I said, I love this thing because sound quality wise, it's the king. The snappiness of it, the way it makes your drum pop is second to none. It gets a little slack from like how aggravating it is to get around sometimes when you're just trying to move. But if you're gonna take your time, like I say, it's the Cadillac, so old school Cadillac. If you're gonna take your time, yeah, it's the big joint. You might have to take a little extra time to ease into that park, but the drive is worth it. So that's the MPC 4000. Next up is the MPC 2000. Now this joint came out in '97. It's the first MPC with a waveform readout, which was crazy back then. I like this little scroll wheel. I literally kept this one because of the scroll wheel. I had 2 other MPC 2000 XLs, and this one made the cut. I sold those 2 because basically just the way to get around on here. I briefly owned it back in the day. I never had like extensive usage on it back in the day, but since I've gotten it, I've had it for like a year now, and I love it, man. I've been using this joint to make my sample libraries on, and the reason I use this one because it's easy to edit on here. I love the sound of the preamp on here. It sounds good, like kind of distorted. I know that sounds crazy because it's digital, but yeah, it does sound kind of good distorted when I'm recording my sounds in. I love the fact I got the effects card in this one, so want to just grab a little slight reverb on the snare or something like that, I could do it in the box. I don't have to wait till I get it tracked in. It's like one of those things where get it done and I don't have to think about it later. I won't reverb on the snare anyway. I don't need to go on my computer and pick through 300 reverbs, and I could just use the one in here. So I love this joint. It's only 3 minutes 30 seconds of sampling time. Anybody that know MPCs, though, those numbers are ingrained in us. This is the first one, 3 minutes 30 seconds. So more than enough time to do what you need to do. We shouldn't be looping 15 seconds on a pad anyway. That's kind of whack. So I love this thing. It gives you all the sampling time you need, and you got to kind of be mindful of like your sample spots, because you can only put 128 samples total in here, and you only got 4 pad banks. Like you can have 4 or 5 programs, but you can only have 1 loaded at a time. So it's better than the old, like the 60, where you can only have 1 program. you can have a couple programs on here, but you can only have 128 samples total. So you got to be mindful of that when you create your sample libraries and everything, or when you just working. So I love this joint. It's only got the standard 2 MIDI in, 2 MIDI out, which is a drawback. I love the big joints that got the 2 and the 4 because of the amount of synths I have, but it just makes me think about, okay, programming the MIDI channel numbers on my synths instead, which I do anyway. So I'll be able to use it with my MPCs that only got 2 MIDI outs on it. Mine just has a standard 2 stereo outs, standard 2 stereo ins, no SMPTE, no 8 outs, nothing. I use it, this is basically a color box, man. I sample in here when I want to get some grit. 16, 44. That's still digital, but it's not as clean as like my live or something like that, which I like. It's kind of clunky compared to my live, which I like, so I work in a different way when I'm using it. I love this joint. Like I said, I've had it about a year now, so it's basically getting my usage, man, because I'm using it to sample all my libraries, because when I sample on here, that means they're good all the way up to the new X. So that's a big bonus, because like I say, with the waveform readout and the compatibility all the way up to the X, is nice. There you have it, my MPC 2000 Classic. Next on the list is, last but definitely not least, the MPC Live. And I'm making a declaration, this is the best MPC. I know people, the owners of the X, the owners of the 60, the owners of the 3000, which I believe is mostly hype, they all would say, man, you crazy, that little thing cannot compare to the real ones. Yes, it does. I believe that whatever sound character you get from like the 2000s or the 3000s and the 60s, whatever you miss, you definitely triple or you times 10 with the way you use this thing. The fact that this joint has SD, I got a 256 gigabyte solid state inside of here. Basically, I got almost every drum library I've ever wanted to use, because I'm not gonna say everything I own. I've been collecting for like 20 years almost, so I don't got everything I own in here, but I got everything that I want to use in here. There's a big difference. This is one of the only joints you can hook a turntable up to. You can see that joint right there. That's your phono preamp. And I like this one because it has the phono preamp section and it's got its own regular line in. That's major. Sometimes you overlook little stuff like that. That's dope on such a small machine. The additional outputs, that's phenomenal. The 2 outs and then you got 4 outs. So I actually used this on like a DJ set before. I had the metronome coming out of like output 3 or something like that, and the program coming out of 1, 2. So I don't even think it's another MPC you can do anything like it on. This is basically the best one for pound. Like, okay, it can't stand toe to toe with the heavyweights when it comes to certain things, but pound for pound, nothing compares to it. It basically is the best, man. Like, I love it. This last project I did, Redux, I had a guy like, man, I know you did that on the 3000. I know you did that on the 60. Like, bro, nope. Bro, I ain't even on those. I did most of the heavy lifting on that joint on this one, and it sounded like those beats came directly from 1996 on my last project. So this joint is phenomenal. You can make it be whatever you want. That's why I like about this one, because the new ones, I make like house music and some EDM stuff and all that. The older ones, I mean, you really can't make that stuff on there like to sound current. At least you can make this one sound like whatever you want to make it sound like, because of the fact that it has the air plugins built into it. So yeah, it works better in standalone. I mean, in hybrid, it's got way more features, but I never use this thing in hybrid. I leave my MPCs as their own standalone entity. People tell me like, man, you're missing out on a lot. I'm cool. I use Ableton when I want to use Ableton. MPCs and Ableton, those are separate things to me. So whenever I'm using this one, it's standalone. The fact that you got a battery in here, this joint is phenomenal. See, nothing's connected. Just in case you've never used one of these things, nothing is connected. It's not like the one. I could just use this joint 4 or 5 hours at a time. It's according to how much sampling I'm doing in. So yeah, this thing, as far as sampling, it has 2 gigs of RAM, but that's not real. because in the old days, like I say, everybody knows about the 3 minutes 30 seconds on the MPC 2000, but that's because you can only record in the MPC 2000, and it only took 1644 audio, so it knows exactly what you're putting in here. Because of the variables you can put inside of here, nobody really knows how much sampling time it has. It has enough though, because you can put MP3s in it, you can put 2448 samples in it, you can put 1644 samples in it, and the different types of everything blows up to a 32-bit engine. That's why this one sounds so good. So you have to blow it up from where it was. So if it's an MP3, you got to blow it up 3 times the amount to get it to be a 32-bit wave. So yeah, it's pretty dope. I love it. The SD card slot on it is phenomenal. This is pound for pound, in my opinion, the best MPC. The MPC Live 2 up the ante. So when I say this one, technically I don't mean this one. I mean the MPC Live MK2 is the best MPC, and this is like the second best because of the fact that we can do all we can do on it, and it's portable like this, man. It's got 8 audio tracks. You can actually record songs in here. I did it. Most of the songs you hear from me that I recorded the hook, a song or rapped on or something like that, I did the hook right into this joint. So this one is pound for pound the best. Especially the MK2 coming out helped a lot of people because you can find these for $700-800. Don't be mistaken by it, because we're in 2020 and prices have come down on things. This thing is worth $3,000-4,000, man. If this would have came out in 2005, the capabilities of this thing is like a $3,000 machine. You could do everything. You don't need anything with it. My beats actually sound better when I bounce them down the wave directly on the MPC. They bang harder. So yeah, I love this joint. And you let me know how you feel about MPCs. What's your favorite one? You know my favorite 5 now, but this is the best in my opinion. So hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you got one. Let me know what your favorite 5 would be. Let's open up some dialogue. I got some oversights, and I know some people would be like, man, why you put the 3,000 in there or the 2,500? Well, these are my favorite 5. I do have a 2,500. I do got a couple others, but these are just my favorite 5. So by no means am I saying they're the best, but I'm saying that this one is the best. Not all 5, just this one. So hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking, man. Subscribe. Stay with me. We're going to keep it going. Keep it moving. Keep banging. Let's go. Peace.